I am Professor P.K. Banerji and I will be your instructor for this course on strategic management. The strategic management course is basically given to MBA students to give them an overview of the way a business is run and how a business makes itself competitive in the real world. To begin with, we must understand what does the word strategy mean. The word strategy comes from the Greek word strategos, which means generalship, the direction given to a military force. It will be appreciated that a lot of the terms and phrases which are used in business management, they have been taken from military doctrines because the ideas were evolving from warfare. Likewise, their application in business draws from the warlike situations. In the case of a business, the war is against the competition. The competition is the enemy. Okay. So in that sense, we must always look for parallels between the enemy in the military situation and the competition in the commercial situation. Now, before we get into the commercial situation of strategy, let us see how the word strategy has relevance in the military doctrine. The best example I can give to you about this is the example of the Kargil War, which was fought between May and July 1999. Many of you may remember photographs like this which had appeared at that time. Now, what was the Kargil War all about? The Pakistan military was trying to curtail the movement of goods and men between the plains of Punjab and Ladakh and Kashmir. There was a single road which was connecting the rest of the country to Kashmir and Ladakh. If they could cut this road, it would separate the whole of Jammu and Kashmir from the rest of India. So, with that objective in mind, what they did was that during the winter months, when there was hardly anybody moving in that territory, they moved their goods, material and armaments to the top of the mountains on the Indian side of the border and parked themselves there waiting for the right opportunity to arise. The Indian government was not at all aware of these developments. It was only when the summer months came and certain herdsmen who used to graze their sheep and goats on these hillsides, they started taking their animals for pasturing, that they saw movements at the top of the hills and the top of the mountains. They came and reported this to the military authorities, and to the surprise of the military authorities, they found that a series of hilltops had been occupied by the Pakistanis. They had built bunkers over there and they were equipped with heavy armaments to take any kind of Indian attack. The question therefore became that how do we get rid of these people who are parked at the top of these mountains in a very dominating position? It became a major issue. How to get rid of these trespassers and infiltrators. The Indian Army had to evolve a strategy how to get rid of these infiltrators and trespassers from the top of the mountains. Okay. So it was a question of what kind of generalship would be provided in order to achieve the objective of dislodging and sending back these infiltrators back to the Pakistani side of the border. The Kargil War was fought. Bofors guns were used for the first time in an armed conflict. Indian Air Force was used in this conflict to first strafe the tops of the hills where they had built the bunkers. The Bofors guns were used to again bombard them first, and then the infantry was sent up for hand-to-hand combat. This was a strategy. How to first soften up the enemy and then engage them in hand-to-hand contact. So it is an example of military strategy being used to achieve the objective of dislodging the infiltrators and the enemy from the peaks which they had occupied. Now, if we take this parallel to a commercial situation, we can say that if the definition of strategy is the means to achieve objectives, then In the case of a company's strategy consists of a combination of competitive moves and business approaches that managers employ to please their customers, compete successfully and achieve organizational objectives. I hope you are now able to see what is the parallel between a military approach and the commercial approach. Strategic management, therefore, can be said to be the identification of the purpose of the organization and the plans and actions to achieve that purpose, achieve that objective. Strategic management is also defined as a dynamic process. Mind you, I am using the word dynamic, not static, dynamic process of formulation, implementation, evaluation and control of strategies to realize the organization's strategic intent. Now, each of these elements of strategic intent, formulation, implementation, evaluation and control of strategies are topics of separate discussion, detailed discussion later on in the course on strategic management. The process of strategic management can also be exemplified in a schematic diagram like this. Strategic intent, what does it mean? It includes concepts like defining the vision, mission, goals and objectives of the company. Strategy formulation, it will have to be done taking into account the environmental situation, the organization's own strengths and weaknesses and selection of alternative strategies from which a final strategy will be adopted. Then comes the issue of strategy implementation. How to implement the strategy? The best of strategies, if it is not properly executed, can lead to utter failure. As they say, the proof of the pudding lies in the eating. So, it is possible that if you have tried to implement the strategy and the strategy implementation does not go in the right direction, you may have to change the strategy altogether, or you may have to redefine the strategic intent. In other words, it is a dynamic process and there is a feedback loop operating from each of these elements: strategy implementation, strategy formulation, strategic intent. So, all of these are in a dynamic formulation. Anytime one of them is not working out, I can always go back to the previous block or go back to the beginning itself and redefine my process. Okay. Then there is the evaluation of strategies and the feedback loop, as you can see, goes from each element of box to the other box. I hope by this I have been able to give you an overview of what is strategy and the strategic management process. In the next class, we will take up the issue of how this is applied in a business. What is a business and what are the different types of strategies? So, goodbye for today. Thank you.